welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria, and today we are going to be doing my top favorite books of 2024. So I have not been around for a while now because I was out of my apartment for like 3.5 weeks and wasn't able to film at all during that time. I really had so many videos that I was hoping that I would be able to make, but when I was gone those 3.5 weeks, it was holidays, it was people around, it was just too much going on. So I'm hoping to have a couple of like end of year videos that like normally you would post in like the end of December or the beginning of January over the next few weeks, like through the end of January. So I hope you don't mind. But today, for the first video back, I wanted to go over the big one, my top favorite books of 2024. I have a bunch of honorable mentions, and then I have like my top main favorites. Like always, these are not in order. I can like narrow it down to like top favorites, but there's no way I'm doing like top number one favorite, you know, like that's not me. I don't do that. So I'm going to get right into them because I have a lot of books to talk about. I had a pretty good reading year in 2024. I read 211, just under 220 books in 2024, which is actually the lowest amount of books that I have read since 2020. It's been a little sad this year that I've gone so far down with reading, but I've had so much stuff going on, just like in life, in work and everything. I'm trying to remind myself that it's okay, but it is a little bit hard to convince myself that that's just because to see those numbers trend downward. If you read one book in 2024, you are valid. You are a reader. So I'm just hard on myself. But I'm going to go through my honorable mentions first. I'm not going to go too deep into these ones just because they're honorable mentions. They're just ones that like almost made my list. But I'll give you some highlights about them. The first one that's on top of the stack that I pulled out was Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This one really surprised me this year, or 2024, because I'm not a huge Ali Hazelwood fan. I have not loved her contemporary books, but I tried this one because it's paranormal and I love paranormal books. And I'm so glad that I did. I gave it 5 stars. Absolutely freaking loved it. It is about a heroine named Misery who is a vampire who gets in an arranged marriage with a wolf. I loved it. I'm so happy that I gave it a chance and picked it up, and glad that I have an Ali Hazelwood that I love because so many people talk about her and I just never got the hype. I get the hype with this one. The next one that I have is P.S. You're Intolerable, which I think was actually the first ever book that I read in 2024, which was so exciting to start the year off with such an amazing book. This is a billionaire assistant romance with a single mom. So cute, absolutely loved it. Julia Wolf, really would recommend this series in general. Also, the heroines in a couple of books in this series are plus size, including this one, and I love that. That's actually the reason why I picked it up, because I wanted a plus size heroine, and so I just love that representation in it. And I need to read more of Julia Wolf because she has a whole bunch of rock star romances that I want to try. Then I have Playbook by Rebecca Genchak. This series is so good. This is the Holland Brothers series, I believe is what it's called, and the first one, Burnout, and this one both came out in 2024, and I'm so excited for the third one, which comes out in a few weeks, I think. But this is a sports romance with a hero who plays football. The heroine, whose name is London, has the same P.O. box that Brogan used to have, and a lot of people still send him mail to that P.O. box. Very beloved, very attractive. So women are sending him all sorts of crazy messages, and London is receiving those messages. Very happy to have this in my collection. I loved it so much. Where We Started by Ashley Munoz is the next one. This is the first book in the Stone Rider series. It is a motorcycle club series, and I read the first 3 books, I think, in 2024 and loved them. The heroine in this book is actually the daughter of the president of the motorcycle club. She grew up in the motorcycle club and she is not a fan of it. The hero did not grow up in the motorcycle club, and they met when they were younger, but the heroine wanted to leave and the hero didn't. The hero actually joins the motorcycle club that the heroine does not like. She comes back years later because her father has died, and so she comes back for the will reading and for the memorial of the father, and they see each other again, and those old feelings are still there. They come back up. It is a second chance romance. It's so beautiful. I absolutely loved it. All right, next one is Fragile Sanctuary by Catherine Cowles. Coda. Sorry, my roommate's cat is knocking against everything. The next one that I have is Fragile Sanctuary by Catherine Cowles. Catherine Cowles will show up multiple times again later on because she keeps getting better and better and better and better with her fucking releases. Catherine Cowles, when does this woman sleep? She had so many releases in 2024, and this is the first book in the Sparrow Falls series. This series is absolutely fabulous, but I loved this one. These are romantic suspense. The hero, Anson, is a former FBI profiler who comes out of retirement in order to help the heroine who he falls in love with, and it is so good. It's small town, it's romantic suspense, it's found family, and it is just so freaking sweet and cute, and I love it, and I love their relationship together. I love the FBI profiler, criminal minds energy that's in it. So good. Then the next one that I have is one that I don't have a physical copy of. I wanted to have a physical copy of all of my like honorable mentions and favorite books, but didn't get a chance to do that. So the next one I have is actually Golden Touch by Serena Bowen. This is another romantic suspense book, and this is so underrated. This one is one of Serena Bowen's releases from 2024. The heroine in this one works for a brewery, and the hero is the son of the owner of this brewery. When his father has a heart attack, something like that, and ends up in the hospital, and he is unable to run the brewery, the hero returns to town. The heroine is in danger from an ex-boyfriend, and she has been being paid in cash. She has been staying in the like apartment with that the brewery owns, and the hero shows up expecting to live in that apartment, and she doesn't know that somebody else is already living in it. So they actually end up like forced proximity, end up being like accidental roommates kind of situation. He realizes that she's in danger, wants to protect her. They fall in love. It's so good. Another one that I don't own a physical copy of is Mad Love by Willow Astor. This was my first Willow Astor book, and I'm so happy that I picked it up. This is a single dad romance where the hero does not know that he has a child until he gets a phone call from a hospital saying, hey, your kid was in a car accident. And it turns out that a woman who he had a one-night stand with had a baby, never told him, and she has now passed away in this car accident, and he has custody of the child. And I absolutely loved it. It was so good. Then the final honorable mention that I have is a big one, and that is House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. I love House of Earth and Blood. House of Earth and Blood is one of my favorite books of all time. I love that book with my whole heart. This is the third book in that series, and it is the final book of Bryce and Hunt. I loved this ending. I thought that they did a fabulous job. Sarah did a fabulous job of wrapping things up, but leaving certain things open-ended so that there is room for spin-off ones in the series with the side characters. This was long but emotional. It was action-packed. There were characters that I hate. Like always, you know, in certain fantasy books, there's always characters that I'm like, they should have died. But I really, really, really loved the way that this was all brought together. I really loved the way that this ended. Like I said, action-packed. I had such a good time with it. Bryce and Hunt, specifically Bryce, is very dear to me, and I think that Sarah did a really good job of wrapping things up with her, and I'm really sad that this trilogy is now officially over, but really excited to see what Sarah has going forward, especially with some of the things that happened in this book, which I won't go into because spoilers. I'm really excited to see where it goes, and I loved this book, so honorable mention. Okay, so now we are going to get into my actual official favorite books of 2024. They are stacked in this stack behind me. Like with my honorable mentions, they are not in any order, and I also do not have some of them, so we will start with the ones that I do own, and then we can go to the ones that I need to buy physical copies of. So the first one, I have Bourbon and Lies by Victoria Wilder. This book exploded in 2024. So many people were reading it and loving it. I am so happy I picked it up. I am still mostly an audiobook reader, but decided to pick this one up because so many people were talking about it on ebook, and I'm so glad that I did and that I didn't wait for the audio because I absolutely loved this book so much. This is also romantic suspense. You can see there's a little bit of a trend going on. I do really love a romantic suspense, but this is also romantic suspense. The hero named Grant is one of my favorite heroes that I have ever read, definitely a top 5 hero of 2024. And he and his brothers and his family own a bourbon distillery, a bourbon company called Fox Bourbon. They live in a town called Fiasco, Kentucky. Bourbon is very big in this town. Fox Bourbon is very big in this town. And the heroine is not from the town. I think the heroine is actually from New York, but she witnesses something that puts her in danger, and she has a friend that helps her get into witness protection program. So she shows up in the middle of the night at their bourbon distillery, at their bourbon ranch, and is like, she's gonna live here now. You're gonna protect her. And the hero, who is a former police officer who cannot turn off his police brain, really wants to know why she's there. He wants to know her history. He doesn't super trust her. He has really big trust issues. But the banter between them is so good. The chemistry, the passion. Oh my God. The twist with the, who people were, and with the, culmination of the suspense, I absolutely loved. It was such a beautiful balance between suspense, between romance, and I loved it so much. So if you haven't picked it up, it lives up to the hype. I loved this book so good. The next one that I have is a book that I feel like I read so many years ago, but it was actually January of 2024. When I looked back and saw that I had read this in 2024 and not 2023 like I thought, I was shocked. But it was one of the very earliest books that I read in 2024 after so many people had it on their 2023 favorite books of the year list, and I love it so much. I'm so happy to have experienced Bo and Wynn's story. This is a absolutely beautiful story of 2 people who have disabilities who come together. The heroine in this one's name is Wynn, and she has a limb difference, and the hero has a prosthetic. He lost one of his legs due to illness, and the 2 of them meet at a party one night. They have a one-night stand, and it results in an accidental pregnancy. The heroine, Wynn, wants this baby. She's like, I want to keep it. And when she tells Bo, she's like, we don't know each other, you don't have to be involved. And Bo's like, no, I want to. This is great. I didn't think that I could have children because of the illness that I had. So I'm really excited, actually. And so the 2 of them need to grow together. They need to get to know each other. And through that, the attraction was already there, but that love has to develop. And it was so well done. I want a romance like this one without the pregnancy, please. But I want a romance like this one. I want to love like Bo. I loved Bo so much, and I loved this book so much. Highly recommend this book, and also Hannah Bonham Young in general. If you will remember, I had a Hannah Bonham Young book on my 2023 favorite books also. Next of Kin was on my 2023 favorite books, so 2nd year in a row Hannah Bonham Young shows up. The next one is really exciting, and that is If You Need Me by Helena Hunting. This one is very exciting to me because I work for Helena Hunting, so it's very cool to work for an author that I love so much, and this book was fabulous. This is book 3 in the Toronto Terror series, but it can be read as a standalone. It is a hockey romance with a plus-size heroine and an obsessed he falls first hero. This is not enemies to lovers, but it's she's doesn't like him, he's in love with her romance. And I loved this so much. The two of them went to high school together, they went to grade school together, they grew up together. She was very smart, very academically inclined. She was not popular. She was not well liked. She is a woman who has lots of opinions. She is a woman who speaks her mind, which in a small town is not super appreciated. The hero is the opposite. The hero was loved by everyone. He was super popular. He was a hockey player. He was on top of the world. And that just continues when he goes pro and he ends up being on top of the world with that. He plays hockey professionally for the Toronto Terror. The heroine ends up being his PR manager. She runs the PR for the Toronto Terror. The hero, Dallas, has been in love with the heroine, whose name is Hemi, for years. Since like 3rd grade, he has been in love with her, but she hates him for the way that he treated her in high school, for the way his friends treated her in high school, and the fact that he did nothing about it. She blames him for something that happened. This ends up being a fake engagement romance when the heroine is looking for a date for her high school reunion, and she needs to get out of an awkward situation, and Dallas happens to be there, and she lies to this guy to tell him, oh, this is my boyfriend. And so they are fake dating for a minute there, and then Dallas decides, why not one-up it? I'm gonna propose. So they're fake engaged, but Dallas wants it to be real, and Hemi doesn't even know how Dallas feels. It's so, so good. I saw myself a lot in Hemi in this book, which is why one of the main reasons it's on this list, the way that I connected with Hemi was I have always been, one, plus size, and also very opinionated. I speak my mind. I do not shy away from my thoughts. I have been called blunt my entire life, and that again was not something that made me a lot of friends when I was in high school, and now also, but especially when I was in high school, it was a very awkward moment. So I related a lot to her and her struggles, and loved how powerful and badass she became, and how much Dallas reminded her of how badass she is. So I absolutely loved this. Highly, highly recommend. Next one, Burnout. If you'll remember from my honorable mentions, I had Playbook on my honorable mentions and mentioned that that was the book 2 and that Burnout was book 1. Well, Burnout is on my top favorites. I loved this book so much. This one is about Knox, who is a motocross racer, and the heroine, Avery. The heroine's name is Avery. She is an Olympic gymnast, and she is currently recovering from an injury. And so she has cut back on a lot of her training, but she's going forward slowly with her injury. Knox is kind of an asshole. He's a little bit of a bad boy, and he ended up getting kicked off of his motocross team. He also is responsible for his younger brothers. Their parents died, I think, and Knox and his like 4 or 5 brothers are all responsible for each other, and so the older ones look out for the younger ones, that kind of thing. So Knox has had a lot going on, and he ends up getting cut from his motocross team. So he decides to join a trick riding team for the summer, and a friend of his on that team is like, hey, if you want to get better, I had a gymnast help train me with my tricks, and it helped made me so much better. And so that he sets it up so that he's gonna get trained, and Avery, who is small, dressed in pink, blonde, shows up and is like, oh, are you Knox? I'm here as a gymnast to train you. And he's like, what in the hell are you gonna be able to teach me? And they fall in love. They do not get along at first. They definitely butt heads. It's definitely opposites attract, but oh my God, is it so good. I loved it so much. There is a scene where he gets her a pink bike, and I died. I died in it. I was so happy for it. I absolutely loved this book. Highly, 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 highly recommend. Okay, so the next 2 are actually both Catherine Cowell's books. Like I said, I told you she was gonna come back. This one was actually an arc when I read it. This is a favorite of 2024, however, it did not come out until 2025. It is out now though. This is the edition, this is the final edition that you can buy at any bookstore, Barnes & Noble, Target, because Catherine Cowles is traditionally published now. This book is traditionally published, which is so freaking cool. So this one is a romantic suspense and it is about a heroine who is a true crime podcaster, and like with any Catherine Cowles book, she's been through some shit. Her twin sister was taken, kidnapped, disappeared on the day before their college graduation, and she was never found. They never learned what happened to her, and the heroine has been obsessed with true crime ever since, and she became a true crime podcaster. She lives in a van and travels around to different towns with her podcast about true crime, which called Sounds Like Serial, and she helps uncover crimes. She's had quite a bit of success with uncovering crimes that had gone unsolved, so it is her goal to solve her sister's disappearance. So she shows up in this town to talk with her new case that she's working on for her podcast, and she is starting this case that is very, very important to her. She believes that there is a serial killer who's out there who has killed like 20 women. The heroine believes that this girl who she's going to see was the first one, and she is still alive. It was a botched kidnapping. She was kidnapped and then she got away before he could physically hurt her. And the heroine wants to solve this crime. The people of this town are very, very protective of this girl, whose name I don't remember, for very obvious reasons. The girl is now agoraphobic. She has not come out of her house since this botched kidnapping happened many years ago. And so the heroine shows up in the town and she's like, I'm gonna set the scene, I'm gonna solve this crime. The townspeople are not a fan. They do not want her around, especially the sheriff of the town, whose name is Colt. Colt is personally connected to this crime as well, and so he is very protective of this girl who had been kidnapped, and he refuses to let this heroine get anywhere near her. He is like, no, she needs to be protected. How dare you come into my town? He wants her out of there. They butt heads immediately, but the heroine, like I said, this crime is very important to her, so she sticks it out. They end up falling in love and they have this like journey of healing. It was so good, to the point that I read this book at the end of December as an arc, and it's now the middle of January and I have been in a slump since reading this book. I loved this so much and nothing has hit like this since I finished this. So Catherine, you might have ruined me, but I loved this book so fucking much. I am so proud of Catherine for being traditionally published, for getting this book out there, for the growth and expansion that she has had over the last couple of years. She is fabulous and amazing and I love her, and she is the sweetest person, so she deserves all of the success and love that she has achieved with her books recently. And I'm so happy that I got to read this early, and there without a doubt was ending up on my top favorite books of the year. Like I said, there was going to be more Catherine Cowles, so the next one's also Catherine Cowles. This one is Broken Harbor, which is the third book to Fragile Sanctuary, which was in my honorable mentions. This one is my favorite in that series for sure, in the Sparrow Falls series, and this one is in my top 3. Honestly, I don't even know what's in my top 3 Catherine books anymore. It might be Shadows of You, Broken Harbor, and All the Missing Pieces. Honestly, that might be my like trifecta of the best Catherine books. Who knows? But Broken Harbor, gorgeous. This book was amazing. It's also romantic suspense, and this one is about a single mother who runs a bakery in a small town. She is damaged. She was in a previous relationship that went very bad, and she is a single mother. And she came to this town for safety, for security, for a good home for her and her son. She runs this bakery, and her son loves hockey. The hero in this book, whose name is Cope, he is a famous hockey player. He is a professional hockey player, and he is home in the small town for the off season, and he is set to coach the Pee Wee hockey team in his small town, which her son is on. Cope immediately becomes very protective of the heroine. This is a hurt comfort for sure. He wants to do everything he possibly can to make her more comfortable, to make her happy, to make her safe. And I love it. He is so protective, not only of the heroine, but also of her son. He treats him like his own before they're even together, and it's so cute. I love it so much. The twist in this one with the suspense blew my mind. This one too, honestly. Both of these I've usually been good about guessing. This one I guessed part of it, but this one I did not guess at all. So honestly, crazy. But this one, the twist really set me on my toes. I was really kept me on my toes. Wow, that was really hard to say. I loved this. So good. Highly, highly, highly recommend the Sparrow Falls series, this specific book, and just Catherine Cowles in general, obviously. All right, next one that I want to talk about is Lights Out. I love this book. I actually read it twice in 2024. If you read this, read the audiobook. One of the best audiobooks ever. This one is very hard for me to describe. I don't know why I have such a difficult time with this one. But it never sounds right when I'm trying to describe what this one is about, but this one is a dark romance for sure. For a lot of these, please check your trigger warnings. This one and Broken Harbor also, please check your trigger warnings, and Bourbon and Lies. Any of the romantic suspense ones, please check your triggers. But this one is dark romance, so definitely check your triggers. But this one, it does list the trigger warnings in the beginning of this book. This one is a dark romance, and it is about a heroine who is very into masked men. It is her thing right now. She likes to scroll on TikTok and see masked men who are like thirst trap masked men who are like sitting there shirtless, fake blood, knife, mask, hot. She's into it. And then she definitely has this one guy who's her top favorite creator. The heroine is dating this guy, like loosely dating this guy. They're not like exclusive or anything, but she's been dating this guy, and she, after watching a bunch of thirst traps of these masked men and getting really in her feels about it, she drunkenly sends her guy that she's dating a text that's like, hey, would you be into this? And sends him a video of one of her top favorite creator. That guy shows his roommate and is like, look at what this girl wants me to do, not knowing that his best friend and roommate is the guy in the video that this heroine just sent to him. So this guy, the masked man, is like, oh shit, that's me. And he knows of this girl that his friend is dating, and goes to his followers and his videos and searches this girl and finds out that she has commented multiple times on like every one of his videos, and he is super intrigued by this. And he is also a hacker. He's very good with computers, and so he ends up hacking into different cameras so that he can watch her. And he also breaks into her house and films a thirst trap at her house. But they fall in love. And it's so good. And I said that the audiobook is fantastic, and I mean it. The hero has so many like inner monologue thoughts, and the narrator who does it does a perfect job. This book is like equal parts dark and like hilarious. I loved it so much. I was laughing so many times. The heroine has a cat and the hero talks to the cat. And before the hero and the heroine are even dating, like when the hero is just like constantly breaking into her house, he's like, don't talk about our son like that when she says something about the cat. It's so funny and I laughed so much and I loved it. It's so good. The next one I have is Wild Love by Elsie Silver. This one is a small town romance and its hero falls first. The hero has been in love with the heroine for a really long time, but she is his best friend's sister, and he comes back to his, to this small town to start a record label. He's been in the music industry for a long time and he wants to start this record label. And the heroine works as his assistant. But one of the things that I found super interesting about this was that it's single dad, but it's single dad in a way that I had never read before. The hero has this preteen girl show up at his door to be like, hi, are you this person? Then you're my dad. And he's like, I don't think so. And she's like, well, actually, one time when you were younger, you donated sperm or sold your sperm to a sperm bank. And my parents used that sperm to make me. So yes, you're my biological father. And her father that she had grown up with has recently passed away, and her mom is struggling, going through a really hard time. And so she's like, my mom needs to go into this care facility, so I need to stay with you so that I can be taken care of, so that my mom can go into this facility without worrying about it. And he takes her in and it's so cute, and they bond over music together and it's so adorable, and I loved it, and I loved the romance. The hero has been in love with his heroine for so long and it was so cute. Absolutely loved. The next one is Caught Up, which is actually another single dad romance. It is a baseball romance. The hero is a professional baseball player and he has a 1-year-old toddler son, and he brings his son with him when he goes to play baseball, when he travels, because he refuses to leave his son with anyone. But he's been having a hard time finding someone to watch him while they're on the road and while he's playing baseball, because he's been firing all the nannies. So the coach's daughter is there for the summer, or for a couple of months, while she's in between. She just got out of baking school, cooking school, culinary school. That's the word I was looking for. She just got out of culinary school, and she is in like a middle period between being in culinary school and like what she's gonna do next. And so she's been traveling, hanging out with her dad, who is the coach of this baseball team. And the coach is like, my daughter is gonna watch your kid, to the hero. And the hero is like, I don't know if I trust your daughter, because he's so protective of his son. But she obviously does become the nanny, and they fall in love, and I loved it so, so much. Little family. Oh, it's so cute. Love the way that the heroine bonds with the son also. I thought that was so freaking cute. And I loved the hero in this one. Liz Tom 40 knows how to write a hero that is so lovable that I want him. I want him. Without the baby. This list would not be complete without a Laura Pavlov book. This year, my favorite Laura Pavlov book is Forbidden King. This one is the third book in the Magnolia Falls series, and it is also a best friend sister romance, just like Wild Love. This one, the heroine's name is Sailor. The hero is a member of her brother's core friend group. They have been through a lot together, and so they have this core friend group where they call each other brothers. They're like so close. The hero has been in love with Sailor for a really long time. They have history that nobody else knows about. When they were younger, Sailor actually lived with the hero's family for a while because of some things that happened, because they were not safe with their parents. Sailor and her brother had to leave, but Sailor ends up staying with the hero King's family, and he protected her. He saved her. They comforted each other together, and for years they've never like gotten together, but they've had this like close connection for a lot of years. And finally now, as they're both adults, it's culminating into something that they can't ignore anymore. And the hero loves her so, so much. And they start spending a lot of time together because the heroine has moved back to town, I think because she finished college, and she decides to open a romance bookstore in the town, and the hero is a contractor and is helping her build her bookstore and put it together. And they spend a lot of time together. Their feelings develop now that they're older, and they fall in love, and it's so, so, so cute. I loved it so much. So those are all of my books that I actually own physical copies of, but there are a few that I don't own physical copies of. And the first one of those is Skies Over Caledonia by Samantha Young. I own the rest of this series. I don't know why I don't have a physical copy of this one. I really thought I did, but I cannot find it anywhere. And this one is a marriage of convenience romance that takes place in Scotland. This one, the heroine loves Scotland. Her sister lives there. She has no connection to America anymore. She had some really horrible things happen to her while she was in America and has now been in Scotland for the last couple of years because her sister lives there. It's where she feels any sort of peace and any sort of like home. But she gets a call basically that she's gonna get kicked out of the country. She's like, if you leave, you won't be allowed back in. You are not getting a visa. And she's like, shit, I don't want to leave. And she knows of this guy who needs money. He is a farmer. He's desperately trying to save his family's farm that his grandfather left to him, and he is struggling financially. So the heroine shows up to him and is basically like, what if we got married and I gave you my trust fund so that you can handle your farm, and then I get to stay in Scotland? And the hero is like against it at first, but he really is like, I cannot refuse this. I really, really need the money. And so they get married, but they have to convince all of their friends and family members that they got married not because of the money, because he doesn't want anyone to know about the fact that he needs money. And also the heroine doesn't want them to know that she was gonna get kicked out of the country. So they pretend, even though they don't know each other very well, they pretend that they got married because they were in love. But then they actually fall in love, and it's very, very cute. I absolutely loved it. It was my favorite of this series, and this series was amazing. I had a really hard time choosing which one of this series I wanted to be on this list, but I love this whole series. It's called the Highlands series by Samantha Young. Highly recommend every single book in the series. Then the last one that I don't have a physical copy of is Promise Me This by Carla Sorensen. This one is about a heroine who's a single mom, and she is an author, so she can work from anywhere, and she really wants like a stable place to raise her daughter. And so she moves to this small town that she used to live in, and she moves in with her parents. And her best friend lives in this town, and he is a grouchy, grumpy guy. And he has this giant house that he has been working on, and they reconnect, and he's basically like, I'm alone in my house. Why don't you stay with me and get you out of your parents' house, because she's really butting heads with her mom. And she takes him up on that, and this is like a really, really beautiful friends to lovers romance. Again, with the single mom aspect of it, the hero becomes so protective of the heroine's daughter. I love the way that he stands up for her. Like, there's this one scene where the heroine is like at school and is getting in trouble at school, and the hero comes in and he like is like, absolutely not, don't you talk to her like that, no friggin' way. And I loved it so much. It's so good. I had to put it on this list when I was coming up with my favorites. This one immediately popped to my mind just because of the emotional way that I connected to it while I was reading it, so I had to put it on this list. But that is the last one. I'm pretty positive that's the last one. That is the last one that I wanted to talk about. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I would highly recommend any of these books, obviously, since they are my favorites. And I'm really excited for what 2025 reading has in store for me after I get out of this friggin' slump. So that is gonna be it for this video. I think it's gonna be a long one, so I'm really sorry about that. But I'm hoping that I can have more videos coming to you soon. So that's gonna be it. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe, stick around, see more content from me. I promise I post occasionally. But that's gonna be it. So I hope that you have the absolute best day. Bye.